Alright, what's going on, guys? We got week 5 in the books. We did pretty good yesterday. I'm going to quickly go over my week 5 lineups, and then we're going to take a look at first look. Haven't even looked. You can see right now I'm on right here. I'm going to go into the Millie Maker, and I'm just going to make a quick cash lineup, but also point out some tournament plays. But yeah, just a review of yesterday. If you looked at my first look lineup from last week, you could say we hit on Adam Thielen. I think that's going to be a hit every single week. The guys had over 100 yards every single week. We hit on the running back. Saquon Barkley was very low owned overall out of those top running backs. I think it was less than 5% clip in the Millie Maker. He did great with 2 passing touchdowns. He's just an all-purpose back. He's going to get the targets, and he's also going to get all the carries, and he's going to get the goal line work. So it was just great to have no matter what. And the other running backs we had in there did well as well. I mean, Christian McCaffrey at 8K, I would have liked to get a lot more out of him production-wise, but he got over 20 points, which is what you need. In that lineup I made later on in the week, we had Joe Mixon in there. I pulled Joe Mixon from a lot of lineups. I actually had him in close to like 80% of my lineups. I had a lot of weight on Joe Mixon, but I got nervous once I saw that Thomas Rawls was going to be on the roster. I didn't know if there was going to be like a 60% snaps for Mixon. He ended up getting 78% of the snaps. That was just reported. But Mixon was in a good amount of my lineup still, probably about 30 or 40%. I kept him in that one that we made on Friday, and it did well for me. David Johnson was great at his price. Getting over 20 points is exactly what you want, scoring 2 touchdowns. Not a lot of yardage, but he got in the end zone twice, so he saved us. Steph Diggs in the lineup that I made on Friday did well. Also, we had Jimmy Graham in there, and I think we had Jimmy Graham in the first one. I can't remember for sure. Bills defense is somewhere where I think I played Bills defense in 90% of my lineups. They were cheap, and I thought they were going to do good at home. They did solid. They got us 12 points there. But yeah, I mean, we could look back at some of those lineups, and we could see that we did some good things with wide receiver. We did great at running back, getting the pass-catching running backs in there, which has been working all year round. Me fading James Conner last week, that was obviously a huge mistake. I knew that was going to be a high-scoring game. It was clearly a 58-point total, and I faded him. I thought that there was going to be opportunities elsewhere. He was actually pretty cheap at 7,500, and he just blew up, and that's easy to say now in hindsight. I mean, if he goes for only 25 points, instead he goes for 37, and really, if you didn't have him, it shifted the slate in a lot of tournaments. But that being said, I did well in tournaments. And I actually played a stack that I didn't get to show on here at all tournament-wise. I thought about it on Saturday more. And basically what I did was I played a stack between Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, and MVS, and that obviously did great. Aaron Rodgers' first 400-yard game in a while. Davante Adams, 140 yards. That might be his career high. I don't really know. But he doesn't usually get a lot of yardage. He gets a lot of targets, short, quick passes, red zone targets. He caught a touchdown, Adams. And then you had MVS, who caught a touchdown, got tackled at the 1-yard line. So overall, that lineup did great for me. Playing a lot of Tyler Lockett over Doug Baldwin, and that's a guy that I missed on in both these lineups. Baldwin early, he had a catch, and after that, it really wasn't anything that he was seeing. Wilson only threw the ball 20 times, which is just, they're just relying on the run there. It's almost extraordinary how much they're not throwing the ball. I get that their line's terrible. But yeah, I mean, I got Tyler Lockett. He had 98 yards, 3 catches, and a touchdown, I believe. That long touchdown, that helped me out in some tournaments. And the Bills defense in all the tournaments and cash games helped me as well. But that was just last week. I think we did overall pretty good. Kirk Cousins was pretty solid, over 300 yards and a touchdown. Would have liked to get another touchdown out of him. But at that price at 6K, getting 18 points out of him, obviously you want more there. But it was solid for what we had at the rest of our lineup. But for right now, I'm going to get into this week's first look. This is week 6 now. We're just going to click on the Millie Maker and just see if we can make a lineup in here. All right. So I'm just going to give you my strategy, and basically I'm going to build a cash lineup here just so it's clear. Last week I didn't clarify that. And a cash lineup is anything that you're going to play in head-to-heads, 50-50s, double-ups, any type of leagues, things like that on Draftkings. And if you don't know already, if this is your first time learning about this stuff or first time watching me, a cash lineup is just basically something that you're putting out there that has a high floor. You're not going for these guys that are just maybe going to catch a 50-yard touchdown like Lockett. You want guys in there who are going to get production, and production means opportunities. So they're going to get touches in the backfield, whether it be catches, targets, running the ball. As wide receivers, you want to get at least 10 targets. The way that I look at it, for my wide receivers in cash, the 3 of them, I'd like to get 30 targets, 10 targets each on average. So maybe you got a guy like Davante Adams or Adam Thielen, you know is going to get 10 to 12 targets, and then you could build around that. At running back, I want my running backs to get close to 70 touches in the air and on the ground. So I usually play 3 running backs since there's so many pass-catching running backs now, and the offenses are so explosive and they're throwing the ball to the running back more. I play 2 running backs and then 1 in the flex. So what I want there is I want 70 touches. So that's around, what, 23 touches a back. That's what I want to see out of my running backs. And then if you want to add the tight end, 6 targets for a tight end is usually pretty solid. And also a guy that I'll point out, I played a lot of David Njoku last week with Jimmy Graham. Both did pretty solid. Njoku at that much cheaper price, $3,400, I believe. All right, so getting into this now. In cash game, quarterback, I don't really care too much. I'll usually pay down for them. I won't ever really pay up unless it's like last week when you knew Big Ben was going to do well. But if you paid up for Matt Ryan, you kind of lost it on that one. He did decent, actually. Let's actually look at that. I don't know what his final stat line was. 15.4. So that's decent. That's basically a floor. But he basically hit his floor, which is not what you want in a 58-point game. Only having 1 touchdown and only 285 yards, and he get the 300-yard bonus. Next week, though, he's the top quarterback. Top quarterback against Tampa Bay, who's just letting quarterbacks explode off of them. So this is a situation where paying up in cash like Big Ben last week is probably smart. I don't want to do it, though. I want to save salary so I can get those big running backs. Kirk Cousins, he's getting up here. Arizona only runs 45.4 or 43 point, somewhere in there, 49.5 I think plays per game, which is extremely low. Their number actually went down this week to 49.4 because they ran only like 48 plays on offense. On the flip side of that, to give you some complete extremes, yesterday the San Francisco 49ers ran 92 plays on offense, which is the most ever or something like that in the modern day, which is insane. So you have the least plays and the most in the same game. Arizona still somehow wins because of, I believe, a defensive score or a couple of takeaways. But looking here, Deshaun Watson is just solid. Last night we saw him play great. He got 25 points in a game where his team wasn't scoring and they got stalled on the goal line 3 times. He gets 25 points. 375 yards back-to-back games. That's actually really impressive. Oh, wow. Look at that. I mean, 310. He's been over 300 the last 4 weeks. He's the guy that I want to play every single week because he could run the ball as well. What did he do yesterday running? 40 yards on 10 carries. He could run the ball. He's getting you an extra 4 points right there easily. Definitely a guy I'm considering. Cam Newton's another guy like that. I played him in a couple tournaments. Kind of a dud. He started off pretty hot. Him and Funchess with that stack. Didn't do well. I only played it in like 2 tournament lineups. But he's still a guy who could run the ball. 3 points. He's basically getting you right there. And he had a bad week through the air. Only had 237 yards, which is actually interesting. They did win that game on the controversial 4th down spike, whatever it was. Eli throwing interceptions. Saquon Barkley doing everything he could. But not too much because of Cam, maybe more so because of the defense. Let's look a little bit more down here. Russell Wilson, he gets a price adjustment to 5,600. We played him. I played him in a lot of lineups with Lockett. I'll take 20 points at 5,100 from a quarterback. That's for sure. Baker Mayfield, what did he do yesterday overall? Had a pretty good game, 5,500. He's still low against the Chargers, so if they don't have Joey Bosa, this might be a way to start at Baker Mayfield right here. Jameis Winston, don't want anything to do with that. Jared Goff, always solid. He's still, I think, underpriced at 6K. This is a very interesting spot here against Denver's defense. Jared Cook there might be a way to start this lineup out. Going down even further, Joe Flacco's pretty low price against a good Tennessee defense, though. Don't want anything to do with that. Dak Prescott last night, he just doesn't have any receivers. There's nobody out there. Cole Beasley gets, what, 1 or 2 targets, and he's your top receiver. Cole Beasley is the top receiver, and he had 60% of the snaps going into yesterday. Most receivers at Pro Football Focus I use, they get 85% the number 1 receivers on the team. They're getting 60. So they clearly, obviously, we know they don't have a number 1 receiver. They don't even have a guy who can stay on the field. But let's build this lineup, and just for starters, let's see what we could do if Deshaun Watson's going up against Buffalo at home, though. Let's see what we could do if we throw Jared Goff in at 6K. Last week we played Cousins at 6K. It's a number that I like because a lot of people, like I said, they see the 6K, they think they're getting a discount if they go somewhere like 5,900 or 5,800, 5,900 with Rivers. They think they're getting a discount, or they think they're getting a huge bonus if they play somebody like Cam because they're paying up a little more. It's just a psychological mindset thing. If you read Jonathan Bale's book, he created Fantasy Labs, a great company. They have a great product out there for building models. But he has a lot of books too on fantasy, so I'd recommend that. I'll link it up in the description below as well. So we're going to start with Jared Goff. A little expensive at 6K, but not really too expensive. I actually like that price. We did that last week with Cousins and got some good quality out of the running backs. This week, once again, we don't have our guy on the slate. I think he's on bye this week with the Saints. Gurley yesterday, he's at 10K. Wow, okay. We got our first 5-digit guy of the year. Gurley, 33 points yesterday. I mean, he had a decent game, but he just scored 3 touchdowns, and that's what he does. He has an incredible role in the red zone. He's getting, like, every single red zone carry, and they're carrying the ball in the red zone. If they get inside the 20 and they run 8 plays, there's probably 4 carries in there and maybe 1 or 2 targets to Gurley. It's incredible. And they had both their receivers go down. Something I want to monitor this week is what's Cooper Kupp's status and what's Brandon Cook's status. Brandon Cooks looks really bad. Any of those guys are out. Paying up for 10K for Gurley if he's going to have an extra 8 opportunities in the game, and probably 2 of those will be an extra 2 red zone or goal line back carries. That's a guy that you want to pay up for, but 10K is just, it's going to scare a lot of people off, so I think he'll be lower owned, but for right now, I don't want to touch it. McCaffrey, his targets were very disappointing last week. He ended up catching 5 of 6, but he had nothing at halftime. But I shouldn't say disappointing. I only thought he had like 3 catches, so this is actually pretty good. 20 points though at 8K. Maybe something we want to stay with. Don't want to completely run away from it. Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is the guy that I'm probably going to plug in here. He's playing a decent Pitt defense, and you know it's going to be high scoring. He's at home here. I'm going to guess that they might be favored by like 1. I don't know what this is right now. I maybe say Pittsburgh might be favored by 1 or 2. But I'm going to plug Mixon in here if we know that Bernard's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks. Mixon had 78% of the carries on his first week back. They want to give him all the workload. 22 carries right there. 4 targets. He made a touchdown out of that. He broke off, I saw a couple of 30-yard run, like an 18-yard run late in the 4th. You want to see Mixon doing that. His leg was holding up to actually break off those runs. Had some bursts late. That's good to see. Melvin Gordon gets his price to go down a good amount. It went down $400. He had another solid week. I mean, his floor week is basically 20 points. I know he had 16, but that's more of an outlier. His floor is basically 20 points. Zeke last night. Zeke did decent last night, I believe. Yeah, 15 points. He caught 7 balls last night. A lot of short balls, though. So 4.3 yards per carry. 4 yards per catch, actually. David Johnson, is this for real? Wow. So David Johnson goes out there and has a decent week. He gets 18 carries and he gets 3 targets. So 21 opportunities for David Johnson. He turns it into 21 points. And his price goes down to $5,900. Let's just lock that in there for now because it's so cheap and we know he's going to get some opportunities. And it's against the Minnesota D that's not been great overall. Maybe a little bit better against the run, but I mean, who'd they play this week? Latavius Murray. The problem here is that their whole offense is only going to run 50 plays. Yesterday they ran, 48 plays, and Johnson was getting 21 of those looks. So that's insane. He's getting like, 43% or around there of the looks in this backfield, but there's not a lot of looks overall. So if they get down, that's the issue here. You worry about Minnesota getting up big at home. Maybe we take Johnson out right now. So let's just quickly, you know what, I like to do this. I just like to plug in a cheap 2,300 defense that I think looks good. Who's at home here? We have Oakland against Seattle at home at 2,100. I'll just plug them in. I'm just going to plug them in, and the reason is, I mean, you can work with some stuff, and you can pay up for defense later if you want to. So we'll plug them in, and we can see what our averages are. Tight end, we have this guy. He did pretty decent yesterday. He caught like a 50-yard pass to start the game. But their offense is terrible. If Dak's only throwing the ball 20 times, and he's never throwing to receivers, and he's throwing to tight ends 3 times, and he's throwing to Zeke 10 times a game, you're going to have no opportunity with the Dallas pass catchers. I want to stay away from that. David Njoku, like I said, he's been great. 11 targets yesterday. I saw he had 7 basically every week. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to throw him in here. Baker likes looking his way. 11 targets. He's going to catch a touchdown some week. David Njoku's a guy that I like here. In a game where Cleveland's at home, so advantage Cleveland. Probably going to be down or sticking in the game because they have a good defense. Passing game's going to be active. Got Baker Mayfield who throws darts and he's looking your way. That's an advantage. At 3,800, his price only goes up 400. I think it should be in the 4Ks for sure. But let's look at the rest of the tight end slate. The reason I'm going tight end first is I want to come back then to my receivers and running backs and see what we could do. Greg Olson's supposed to play this week at 4,300. If Greg Olson actually is playing and we get word that it's a full workload, 500 more. I like Greg Olson a lot more because you know he's going to get all the passes. Probably dinks Christian McCaffrey a little, but then again, it might open up the running game a little more for him. Let's see what else we have here. Ebron's a #1 tight end, and tight end's cheap this week. 5,400 is the most expensive, and when you don't have guys like Kelsey, he's playing Sunday night against the Patriots. I don't have guys like Jimmy Graham, who's going to be on the night game, and then you have Gronk, obviously, in the night game. Jimmy Graham playing Monday night for the Packers. George Kittle's also there as well. So a lot of tight ends off the slate. We're actually pretty thin here. Trey Burton comes back. Trey Burton's been doing great, but very limited opportunities, so it's interesting to see if he can keep that up. I'm going to go with the guy, like I said, 6 targets out of my tight ends is what I want. I'm going with the guy who I know is getting 6, and he's getting it repeatedly, and he's going to do it against an offense or a team now that he's probably going to have to throw to stay into the game against the Chargers. So I'm just going to stick that right there. David Njoku, I'll play him back-to-back weeks. Vance McDonald was a chalk last week. We played him, I think, in one of our lineups, maybe not, but he was just a bust last week, and I faded him a lot last week, and that's because in that game, you had to pay up for the stars. Antonio Brown, Julio did bad, but Antonio Brown, Juju, James Conner, Ben Roethlisberger, Matt Ryan, you had to pay up for the stars in that game. The James Washingtons of the world, the Vance McDonalds, Austin Hooper actually did really well, so I shouldn't say that. But for the most part, those guys busted, and you threw out a dart there, and it didn't work. So I think that's where we're going to go. I'll just look at this guy from last week. 2 targets, yeah, 2 catches, nothing that I want to look at. He had a long catch, 2 20-plus yard catches. And Jesse James, 2 stealers right there, catching balls. That's a little interesting. You don't really want to try and guess who's doing it. Ian Thomas, I think, had a decent game. So Ian Thomas, yeah, he's getting 6 targets, 3 for 6. He's a little cheaper if you want to save the 600. But let's just go David Njoku and let's move on with this. So at running back, I want to play Gurley at 10K. I really do. I think he's going to scare people off, and he's going to get the majority of the work if either of those running backs is out or receivers are out. TJ Yeldon had a great game on limited opportunities. He had 10 attempts only, but he had 8 catches on 10 targets. So that's what you want to see against Dallas. Yeldon's a guy in cash if Fournette's out again, and their other running back just went down. I think Grant or whatever his name might be. Yeldon's a guy who's going to get all the opportunities against Dallas, who, if he's catching 10 balls, you're getting 10 targets, he has a high floor right there. So let's plug Yeldon in. We'll go back to the well with this Mixon and Yeldon that worked for a lot of people. I think the Millie Maker might have been one on Mixon and Yeldon. I can't remember completely. But this is good because now we have 6K per player with 4 players left. If we can find a cheap wide receiver, that'd be great. Thielen's priced up to 8,500 to number 2, as he should be. He's getting over 100 yards a week here. Antonio Brown finally came through for a lot of people, throwing a 30-burger up. AJ Green, very low owned last week and had a solid game. I mean, 6 for 112. I had him in a couple. He's just low owned compared to Tyler Boyd, and he's only at 7,200. He gets a price recorrect. This is very interesting. Hopkins is only 7,700. Hopkins' price comes down extraordinary. I mean, we're talking $800, whatever it might be, $700. And his price is coming down that much, $700, or yeah, $700, and he just keeps producing. Hopkins is interesting here to stack with Watson in these games. Buffalo on the road isn't as good as they are at home. We've seen that, so let's see what this is going to look like. Julio is just, they don't know how to use him properly. I know he got 5 targets, but 62 yards. I'm saying that's a bad game, and it is for Julio in a game where the total is 58. Juju keeps producing. Cooks is the guy to keep an eye on. Robert Woods, if both those guys are out, is also the guy to keep an eye on. So Robert Woods playing pretty solid right now against Denver next week. I know we got Jared Goff here, so obviously we want to stack that, right? But we don't know what's going on with these pass catchers. So right now you might want to plug Robert Woods in there. I don't like playing Robert Woods though, but if he's the only healthy receiver out there, I don't mind it. I don't like playing him in cash. So what I might come off of right now and go right to Deshaun Watson, now that I'm thinking about this off of first look, seeing how cheap Hopkins actually is, I think Hopkins should be around that $8,400, $8,500 range. Buffalo might have a decent pass defense, but Watson is a different type of quarterback, and Hopkins is unmatched. I had this debate last night. I think Hopkins is the number 2 receiver in the league behind Antonio Brown. I think he's top 2 talent with Odell Beckham, but as far as it just goes, clutch gene, Hopkins might be number 1. I have Antonio Brown right there as well. Julio just doesn't get the opportunities. He's not a red zone guy. They just don't play him in the red zone. Odell's great. He can take anything to the house, but I think Hopkins all over the field is just way better. Obviously, Odell's hands are insane, but I think Hopkins is actually underrated in that aspect as well. So let's plug Hopkins in here too, just because I love that price point that you can get 2 stars at and still have enough money to build a solid lineup. And now I'm just going to slide to the bottom here and see if we can get anything of value. So Randall Cobb and Geronimo were out. MVS did well. He wasn't as high owned as I thought, maybe around the 7% range. And he produced, so he hit that easily. He scored a touchdown right when he did that. He produced. He had like 7 catches, 68 yards. This is a guy who I just keep looking at every week. Like, are you going to play? Because maybe at 3,300 he catches a touchdown. He's going to get some targets. Where do we have some opportunities down here, boys? 3,700 and girls. 3,800. Willie Snead, he's been solid. 5 of 7 again, another 10 points. It just seems like that's going to be his floor, and if he gets in the end zone, he'll do decent for you. Got in the end zone week 1. So that 10 points seems like it's his floor, but at 4,100 in cash, that's not bad, but I want more. Taylor, a lot of people were on him this week. Didn't do great. At Buffalo, it's tough to get loose over there. Christian Kirk finally gets a price adjustment after, what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks? Yeah, every week being under 4K. Honestly, I played him. I played him a lot. We saw that I played him in the first look. This is the guy who caught a 75-yard touchdown on the first drive of the game, basically, for Arizona. And then he gets, what, 2 more targets, 1 more catch? 3 catches, okay. He had a carry for 5 yards. 18 points is great. I'm not going to complain out of 3,700, but he could have had a lot more. So this is the interesting part of the field right here. Wow, 4,600 for Kiki. So if you want to go a full stack here, at only 4,600, you can get Kiki. He outproduced Will Fuller last night. They had him in the gadget role with that little shuffle pass for a touchdown. 6, 7 targets in this game, 17 points. You know, at 4,600, Kiki's going to be the chalk this week. I mean, I'm already looking at that. He's got the hype. Everybody loves him just hype-wise. The media is going to be on him more this week. He's just that new, fresh face. And I want to get on him now. He's a small receiver, but you have the big body receiver here. I love playing big body or bigger receivers who can jump, who can catch balls. Hopkins is a little bigger, I believe. We have Kiki here. Now we got 5,700 to spread, and I want one running back. I want one big running back if possible. We spent up at quarterback, so it might be a little hard. But let's see what we can do here. Obviously not going to be able to afford Gurley. Nowhere even close to affording Gurley. But what can we do at this price range? Zeke at 7K. That's the cheapest he's been, 7K. Playing the Jags at home. Don't love that matchup. But we just saw Kareem Hunt have a decent game against the Jags. Melvin Gordon at 82K. I don't want to play Connor, even though he's just kind of produced pretty steadily. Don't want to play Connor at 7,700. Chris Tompkins is a guy a lot of people forgot about because AP has been doing great. I mean, his first 2 weeks he did good. Last week against Green Bay, we'll see what he does tonight. Maybe he's a guy if he kind of goes under the radar at 6,100. LaShawn McCoy, I played him in like 3 leagues paired with the Bills defense that I played everywhere, and I thought I was going to have something special. He had a decent game, but I thought he was just going to get in the end zone or get me a 100-yard bonus. So this is the tough part. This is actually maybe not a tough slate. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. But throw David Johnson in there. Throw David Johnson again in the flex for me where I put him a lot last week. Against Minnesota where they're probably going to be down. Maybe you see a lot more pass catching opportunities for Johnson. But at 5,900, that's just such a cheap price that he's getting. And he produced the last 2 weeks for us. So I like that he's getting all the goal line carries, all the red zone work. So I'm just going to put David Johnson in there. We can probably come down off of Kiki if we really wanted to here. But let's just see how we could finish this up. 56, he laid a goose egg, I think. Yeah, he laid a goose egg. I don't think he's going to do that again against Indianapolis, but he laid a goose egg. Doug Baldwin kind of laid a goose egg for everybody. He caught 1 ball on like their first drive and then nothing after that. Very interesting. He wasn't hurt, which is very interesting. In the slot, too, he got to avoid Marcus Peters. Sanu had a good game. He was a chalk, and he had a decent game. Got in the end zone for you. Jordy Nelson got in the end zone again. He's getting a lot of good work out there. Only 4 targets, but he's getting the work in the red zone. DD's not bad. Tyler Lockett, like I said, I played him. I always love to play Amari Cooper in weeks that he does bad. So look at this. Bad, good, bad, good, bad. I mean, you don't want to follow trends like that, but I just love him off weeks because there's no ownership, and he is still a top receiver who can get loose. Maybe not consistently, but when he does, if he's low owned, that's great to have. In cash, though, it's obviously tricky because you don't want to just play a guy who's getting 1 target. All right, who can we play down here? I kind of want to come up. I want to come up to this range right here. I want to try and get up to Tyler Boyd here. Still getting targets out there. Down week. Maybe people come off of him. I want to come up to Allen Robinson for another $100. Against Miami, at Miami, I'll take that because he's getting a lot of targets out there. 14-7-7. All right, so we're cheap at defense. So this is the cheapest we can get. I like staying at Njoku at 3,800, but what's cheaper? OJ Howard, Vanett. Vanett did decent. I think Wilson looked his way a decent amount of times. 4 targets out of 20 passes for a tight end. That's pretty good. If you say he's going to throw 35 times, he's going to get his 6 targets right there. How did Croft do yesterday? Croft, wow, nothing. So that tight end is still a mystery out there with with the 2 tight ends that they have filling in. I'm going to stay with Njoku at 3,800. I think that's cheap. I think if we have to come down anywhere, it's going to be at one of these running back spots. But we got 3 cheaper running backs. So right here, let's just fill in this guy and see what we can do. John Brown, I don't want to play against Tennessee. Just don't want to do it. Doug Baldwin, I kind of do want to play. Maybe getting lower ownership now going up against Oakland, but they just don't throw the ball. That's the issue there. If they're only throwing the ball 20 times, if you don't get half of those targets, you're going to be hard to make value, especially as a slot receiver. But these 2 guys are interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of low ownership, not only in cash, but in tournaments especially, because they just didn't do good last week. I think Cooper's the guy that you want because he's at home. Oakland coming off a bad game against the Chargers. Now they just get to regroup at home, don't have to travel or anything like that. They're staying right where the Chargers were, basically. And he just bounces back after bad performances, bounces back. 3 targets and he gets 10, then 5, then 12, then 1. What's he going to do now? I don't think he's hurt or anything. Inconsistency, yep. So now we have about $400 left over, and I don't think that I want to buy up anywhere really. At 6,300, there's no running backs that I'd want instead of David Johnson, Chris Thompson, no. Jordan Howard's actually very interesting here. He's on the road, though, against Miami. This should be a close game. He should get more work, but Tariq Cohen is just lurking there in the pass game. Zeke at 7,000 is just going to be really interesting this week going up against the Jags. What did Kareem Hunt do last week? I don't think he's going to be on this slate. No, he's not. I think Kareem Hunt, though, he got in the end zone and he had a decent game, maybe in the 20-point range. McCaffrey catching more balls against Washington could definitely be a possibility, and it's definitely something I'm going to monitor throughout the week. Catching more balls. We're saying 5 catches is bad for him. But you know what, guys? I think this is it. I think maybe coming up off of defense now, but I'm not opposed to keeping the Raiders there. Who do we got? Tennessee against Baltimore at home. I don't mind that. Washington against Carolina, no. Let's come up to Tennessee against Baltimore at home. I'd like to pair the running backs, though. Maybe go Bengals against Steelers, but just don't want to do that right now. Bet on the road's not as great. We could do that, actually. So again, if you pair a running back with you have just more correlation running back. It's not causation, correlation running back with their defense. They just get more turnovers, short fields, red zone opportunities. Pick sixes lead to bigger point spreads, larger leads for the Bengals in this situation. Joe Mixon would get more carries, things like that. Jacksonville against Dallas is probably going to be very expensive. Yeah, 3,600, don't want to pay up for that. Arizona against Minnesota is not something that I want to touch either, the way that Kirk Cousins is playing. But I'm fine actually playing David Johnson. I don't think this one's going to be a blowout. Haven't looked at the lines once again. I would be shocked if it's anything under 7, honestly, if not higher, just because Minnesota is that much of a better team than Arizona. But if Arizona is forced to throw the ball more and they throw the ball maybe 7, 8 times to David Johnson instead of only 3, and he gets 50 yards through the air, he's going to hit value at 5,900 pretty easily for you. So this is a Millie Maker lineup. Obviously, this is something that I would play for cash, like I said. And I'm going to come back later in the week, maybe like on Wednesday, and look at just some of the plays that I'm starting to love. Wednesday or Thursday after I get to digest the slate, listen to what the whole media is saying, figure out where ownership's going to be. This is something that I like. I don't like paying up a quarterback often. You could go down to 6K. I think Goff's going to be a very attractive play at 6K. If he has no receivers in, I think Gurley, stacking him with Gurley. Robert Woods is obviously the obvious choice out there. I think that's very doable. And I think Baker Mayfield's not a bad option at 5,500 because, 2 reasons. He could run the ball. He's getting you 2.3 points there. And he's throwing the ball over 300 yards, and that's only getting 1 touchdown. He hasn't connected with Jarvis Landry as much, and I think that's going to start to happen. If we were to look at Jarvis's price, actually, I'm very interested. 6,600 for Jarvis Landry. That's probably about right. I think he's around a 7K receiver. But look at these targets. 7, 15, 7, 14, 10, 10. I mean, he's one of the top targeted receivers. They're just not as downfield as we would like, and they're just not converting as much. Only 50%, 40%. They're just easy numbers with the 10. But we're going to finish up with that, basically. Chop this video up, get it out to you guys. This is going to be my first look at a cash lineup with a disclaimer that Jared Goff and Robert Woods would be a great stack if Brandon Cooks and Kupp are out. And I like some other guys in this area. I just saw Kiki and I plugged him in. I think a lot of people are going to do that at his price range. I think he's going to be the chalk this week in cash. I think he's going to be the chalk in tournaments. Especially with 3 wide receivers out there, it's pretty crazy. Fuller didn't do great last night. We'll see if he can keep it up. This is the lineup that I'm going with. I think I can get 70 touches out of these running backs. I'm positive I can get 30 targets if Cooper does great this week, and I know I'm going to get 6 targets out of Njoku if he stays healthy. All right, see you guys. See you guys Wednesday or Thursday. Peace.